Good morning and welcome to Reuzel Live. Today is Monday, April 11th, 2022. My name is Nicholas Giverson with Reuzel Education. Today we have all the way from Los Angeles, California, the one and only Katy Dickson. Katy, we're super excited to have you today. Take it away.
Thanks, Nicholas. All right, so today I'm going to be doing an all scissor cut. So that's one of the questions I get most from other barbers is how do I do a men's haircut with scissors only? So following our method of the baseline parting and doing diagonal sections going down to the perimeter of hairline, I'm going to achieve a nice contoured haircut with all scissors. So I'm just going to get right to it. So the first thing that I do is I check the client's natural texture. And a lot of the time guys will come in with product already in their hair and already all styled. But today we have somebody with clean hair, which I super appreciate. But the great thing about our hair tonic, I always add it into my water, and that helps break down any dirt, grease, hat hair, product, anything they got going on. And I just am able to break it down so I can get started with my cut. So first I'm assessing his natural texture. I'm also assessing his head shape, seeing if there's any lumps or bumps, anything like that. And we have a lot of curl in this texture. So I want to go in and make sure I'm finding exactly where the corner of the head is, because that's what's going to dictate my primary parting, which is going to tell me where my baseline is. So the way I find that, especially because we have all this curl, I just smoosh it down, is I use two combs and I find that corner. So I know the corner of his head is right there. So I'm going to go ahead and spray him down. And I like to put a towel around the client's neck for this portion, just because I am going to use a lot of water. I tend to really saturate everything because you want even saturation. You don't want dry spots when you're going through, because that's going to create difference in your lengths, because water softens the hair. It pulls out the hair. So when I say pulls out the hair, it pulls out the curl, pulls out the texture. When you have the difference in that saturation, you're going to have different spots in your cutting. That's not going to be consistent. So you really want that consistent saturation, that wetness. Jesus. So a fire alarm has just been activated in my studio, so sorry about the sound and the flashing light. We are not going to evacuate though. So I'm going to come in again, find that corner, and off of where his natural hairline, where the recession of the hairline is. So we are drawing a straight line on a curved surface, so it will slightly go down, but if you watch my comb, it rounds. So that's my primary parting. And right below that primary parting, that's where I'm going to put my baseline. I'm going to be using all scissors. A lot of the time when I put in the baseline, I will be using a clipper comb, and I will go in and just cut it off like that. But today, since I'm going to be using scissors, I'm going to go in and I'm starting on my right side, which is my dominant side. If you're left-handed, you're going to want to start on your left side. And I like to start my baseline where the head is flattest, and that's going to be right above the ear because our head starts to curve as it goes away from the ear and also curves as we go back away from the ear. So curve, curve, but this is where the flat of the head is. So that's where I'm going to put in the beginning of my baseline. And I'm holding this baseline 90 degrees from the head, which is also horizontal to the head. If you were to put a marble on this section, the marble would just stay stationary. It wouldn't roll back to the head and it wouldn't roll to the fingers. So it's been about a month, 2 months since this client's last haircut. So I'm going to be taking off about 1 inch of hair. I'm also going to be sort of fixing up the shape of this cut. It was left a little bit long in the back, so it has sort of a rounder appearance. I'm going to be doing more of a narrow silhouette to sort of, lengthen the head and create those masculine square shapes. And I want to make sure that I'm not over directing forward or backward when I'm creating this baseline. I just want to pull it out directly from the head. I'm going to come closer to his hairline. I'm going to work my way back below the crown. So the thing that I really love about this baseline technique is that it gives me sort of like in female hair cutting where you have like a bob, you have your perimeter is sort of your guide that you work off of and you don't cut it off. This sort of works in that same fashion where I'm marrying everything to this baseline because we want to create that elongated square shape, which is gives a masculine appearance. It shapes the head nicely for guys, but having that as my guide throughout both the top and the bottom of the cut and working to that, I'm never cutting that off. I'm never creating too much of a round shape through the round of the head or causing sort of that bulky appearance where you're leaving too much length through it or taking it off too much, going too high. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to do the primary parting. I'm going to repeat on my non-dominant side. Because when I started barbering 9 years ago, well, I began barbering when I was about 10 years old, which is not an exaggeration. My father came to me one day and was like, "Do you want to make $5?" And I was like, "Heck yeah, I want to make $5. What do I have to do?" Like I thought I was gonna have to pull weeds or do something like that. And he was like, "Okay, come with me. We're going to the bathroom." And I was like, "What's happening?" And he just hands me these really old, really, really crappy dog clippers from Wall and was like, "Okay, 3 on the sides, 4 on top." And that's when I started barbering. From that point on, I was his barber literally from the age of 10. He never went to another place to get a haircut. So I'm going to check for balance before I make my cut. And the way I like to do that is I like to use my comb for measurement. So I'm going to go in also above the ear. I'm going to pull it out 90 horizontal from the head and see where that lives. So I know that my baseline is that long. So I'm going to go back to this other side, and to ensure that I'm not jumping back and forth throughout the haircut, I'm going to cut it. I'm going to see how much I need to cut off so I have a balanced, even haircut. Because that is the worst when you start one side and you go to the other side and you just kind of are going through it and winging it, as I'm sure we all have as barbers. And we're on a time crunch. I always say when in barbering, we're not selling haircuts. We're literally selling time. We learn how to operate on these 30-minute, 15-minute, hour, windows that we have. So you want to do things effectively and efficiently the first time rather than jumping back and forth, because you check your hair. Some of them don't even check for balance. I know many barbers don't check for balance. But if you check for balance and it's like, oh, this is way too short, and then you got to go back to the other side, and you got to fix the other side, and then you check for balance again, and you're like, okay, it's like I still have more I need to take off, and it just becomes sort of a losing battle, and then you end up doing another haircut or half another haircut by going in again and having to fix the side that you left too long because you didn't check from the beginning. And also, clients know when they have a lopsided haircut. They can feel it. They can see it. They may not be able to see it when they're leaving the shop, pull some pomade through it, call it a day. But as it grows out, hair grows into the shape that it's cut into. So when you give somebody a good cut that is structured properly, then you won't see them as often, but they're going to want to come back to you. It's about building that consistency in your own brand when you have those consistent, good cuts. All right. I'm going to check for balance one more time. Baseline. Beautiful. We're even. Now his hair is long enough that I don't need to clip it up, but in many cases you might want to clip up the hair and get it out of your way. But with his length, I'm able to just manipulate it with the water. Go in, keep saturating. Now I'm going to start my first cut, bringing the perimeter hairline up to the baseline. So I'm going to be doing diagonal back sections, starting right above the ear. And the reason I'm doing these diagonal back sections is because that causes the hair to literally flow backwards, and also is more ergonomic than trying to do perfectly vertical sections. And then I'm able to also get some of that contouring to the head too, because I want to create shorter lengths as we get through the bottom that marry up to the baseline. So using the baseline as my guide. You're not a part of the baseline. Go.
Hey, Katie, we have some questions.
Yeah, shoot.
First question is, why didn't you start the baseline with clippers?
I could have started the baseline with clippers, but I'm going to be doing an all scissor cut as per the request of my client, and the baseline doesn't need to be started with clippers. it can be started with scissors and a comb, which is the way I did. As long as you're establishing your baseline using the horizontal from the head, 90-degree, completely flat section, you're still going to be getting that baseline. I could have gone in and done clippers.
Awesome. And the next question was, what is the function of the blue hair tonic?
The function of the blue hair tonic, it sort of works as like an astringent almost that helps break down oil. It helps break down product, and it sort of works instead of shampooing the client. Because I know as a barber, I'm not typically doing shampoos for each client like a lot of men's salons will do. So that's what I find is most helpful about the function of the hair tonic, that I'm able to not have to shampoo the hair even if they come in fully product up, or they just came from some sort of exercising or sports and they had their hat on. It really helps reset the hair without having to do a shampoo.
Awesome. Thanks for clearing that up.
Absolutely. Feel free to ask any more questions. So the type of shear cutting that I'm doing right now is called palm to palm, and that is what is most ergonomic for the type of cut that I'm doing, because you don't want to be bending your wrists at all. That's what's going to literally cause carpal tunnel, is that bending of the wrist, that strain on the wrist. Just working. Finding my guide. My guide is behind my section. And the section size that I'm using, I'm only using about a 1/2 inch section as I go. I really don't want to be grabbing too much hair at once. When I'm grabbing a ton of hair, like if I just went in and just grabbed all this hair, then I'm over directing a bunch of hair. And that's going to create a bunch of different lengths. It's going to cause some lengths to be shorter, some lengths to be longer from where I'm pulling. So I want to make sure that each section I'm taking is a 1/2 inch from my guide, but also includes my guide. So it really comes out to about an inch section. A good guide for that is no bigger than your comb. Typically combs are only about an inch, 1.25 inches. So I'm getting about to the middle of the back of his head, and that's where I'm going to stop and then start on the other side. I'm going to go just about one past.
Okay, Katie, we got some more questions. They're just rolling in today.
That's great.
Question is, do you think there's a difference between a scissor cut and a clipper cut?
Do I think there's a difference? There very much is a difference. But either way, the hair is getting cut. So I find that clipper cuts tend to be a little more precise in the way that it cuts all of the hair, where scissor cuts tend to be a little more grown in, a little more lived in. Also, you can do longer lengths with scissor cuts. So, but you can basically do anything with clippers that you can scissors. Even a longer cut like this, I could do this whole thing going, and this is my pretend clipper. going clipper over comb. It's all about knowing how to manipulate the hair and how to hold your comb and find your guides. Got any more questions?
Nothing at the moment, but if
Great.
something pops up, I'll let you know.
Great. All right. And then that's my baseline. I'm going to be cutting up to that. So I never want to cut, when I'm doing a scissor cut, you never want to cut past your second knuckle. And that is a lot to do with safety, but mostly it's to do with the way that you're not able to get tension. Because you can see, you can almost see through my third knuckle. You don't get tension in that third knuckle. Sure, you can move through the cut fast when you're going all the way to the knuckle, but you can see this doesn't have tension on it. There's nothing going on there. So I'm not getting that true tension that I need to get a precise cut from my section. And so I work from right above the ear, I work forward, and then I'm going to work backward. So I'm able to see my guide from the previous section, and I also have my baseline as a guide. So I have two things guiding me, literally, guides, through the cut. So I'm not just pulling sections and just hoping for the best and feeling like, oh, that's a good length. I actually have, you know, literal points that I can always refer to, so I don't get lost in the haircuts. Especially with thicker, curlier hair like this, it's easy to get lost in the cut. But when you have your guides, you're not lost. See how I'm already getting that contouring, also it going backwards. So you're able to see with those diagonal back sections going up to the baseline and down to the perimeter hairline, it already is pushing the hair to go away from the face, because that's how we're going to be styling it, is away from the face. So now I'm coming up to my last sections, because we're coming to the middle back of his head. Oh, we didn't take a before photo. I never remember to take before photos. I know that's more of a salon thing too, where it's like before photos. Where barbering, it's like, this is the cut. It's done. We did it. But especially when you have a kind of a bigger transformation, I like to have befores. All right. And our sections are married. I'm going to go in and refine that at the very end, where I taper off his neckline a little bit more. I'm going to get started into the preliminary parting, which is a 6-section top parting. And that I will be working into the baseline. Yeah, the previous person that cut his hair left a lot of weight in the crown. I also prefer to leave weight in the crown as well. There's these two theories about cowlicks, about the world back there. You either leave it long or cut it off. I rarely ever want to cut that cowlick off because you're going to get it just springing back up in a week. But I find that's more with, sons and their mom. The mom's just like, cut it off. It's annoying. So I'm going to go in. I start my preliminary parting with a middle part. Now I'm going to go back to assessing the head shape to tell me where to put the other partings. So I'm going to find where his apex is. That's the flat top of the head. Everything that goes downward, that's the crown. And then going off of where the recession is. Clients don't like hearing that word, but it's the recession of the hairline. It has nothing to do with a receding hairline. So finding where his apex is, slightly below the apex, that's where I'm going to section off the crown. Comb that back. So this is my crown, my corner, and my front. And so going off of, I'm going to make a diagonal section going to the recession. So I have my 3 sections on my dominant side. I'm going to go in, do the same thing on my non-dominant. Just sort of mirror what I have going on. Now you can use clips to section off these sections. I typically just use water, and I'll just spin the hair like I did just to sort of move it out of the way. I find using clips, it's not super necessary, but if you find that that's the best way for you to get a clean section, then I'm all for it. So my first cut is going to be above the ear, flattest part of the head, and it's going to be a 1/2 inch above the baseline. Now the baseline is always going to be held at the horizontal from the head shape. And I'm going to be working these sections down to that 90-degree horizontally held baseline. Take another section. So you see it's almost creating like an awning sort of shape where I'm over directing down to the baseline, but the baseline is being held horizontal from the head because I want to build weight at that baseline. And I know the idea of building weight can sometimes be a little scary for people or sound like something you don't want to do, but you want to create that weight at that baseline because that will help create that square shape. So I'm just going 1/2 inch section by 1/2 inch section, working down to that baseline. See, baseline under there.
Hey, Katy, just checking in and let you know where people are watching from today.
Yeah, where's
We've got
everybody
viewers
watching
we have viewers from Albania, the Philippines, Poland. You've got plenty of Scumbassadors watching you all over the US.
Nice.
We've got viewers from Sweden. Paul Nemec says, loving the technique, awesome shear work. And then lastly, one of our fearless leaders, Marta Harmon, says, good morning, Katy. Ethan can't wait to visit today.
Oh, hi, Marta. Martha? Yeah, I'm going to be cutting Martha's son's hair later.
Everything's looking great. Keep it up. You're killing it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Of course.
So the thing about my body positioning is I'm standing right in front of the section I'm working in. If I'm standing behind my section or if I'm standing in front of my section, it's going to naturally cause me to over direct to where my body is. So I always want to make sure that I'm standing straight to my section. All right, we're done with that corner. We see we've built that weight through there. Now I'm going to work back into the crown. So the crown, you're still going to be doing the sectioning to the baseline, but it's almost going to seem like there's a bit of an angle to it. And that's because even though we drew a straight line, the head is round. So this is a straight line drawn on a round object. I find I'm doing a lot of all scissor cutting, especially since a lot of people have longer hair now, and had a lot of people who never thought they would grow their hair ended up growing out their hair during the pandemic and then are able to try different styles because they're able to get through the awkward stage with literally nobody seeing them. So I find that's kind of the more popular style, at least around in my area, where a lot of guys are trying out longer masculine haircuts. So I've been getting a lot more requests for these lately. I mean, even some of my clients who were, every 2 week skin fade clients realize that, oh, they actually do have a good head of hair and they don't need to just chop it all off all the time. And I find with longer cuts too, you get more longevity with the cut where a fade is gone in a week because a 0 turns into a 1 in a week and a 1 turns into a 2 in a week and then it's gone. So now I'm going to move up to the front. So going horizontal to the hairline, so I want to protect that length in the recession in the corner. I don't want to chop this off. We want to leave length through this area so it doesn't accentuate the recession. Because this, by no means does this client have a receding hairline, but you don't want to create the appearance of stronger recessions. So I'm going to take my first section right next to the baseline. And now I'm going to drop my finger angle because I want to maintain a lot of length through there. So as I drop my finger angle, I'm maintaining length because I'm over directing. And I can see my baseline, the section I just made next to my baseline. And we're able to keep that length. And I'm taking horizontal from the front hairline sections based off of this side of the hairline, but I'm going into the other corner, the other front as well. And I'm just pulling everything. Start at my baseline, pull out this section, and I'm dropping my finger angle. And the more you drop the angle, the more length that you maintain. And eventually, there is no more hair that I can pull over that can be cut over here. And that's what tells me I'm done with that front section and it's time to move to my non-dominant side. So I'm going to get these crown, corner, and front sections back up. Starting flattest point of the head. Hold my baseline out to 90, horizontal. I'm just going to move up the head the same way. I really want to make sure I'm not cutting my baseline off. So I don't want to take too large of sections that I can't see my baseline through what I'm doing. So there it is. So I'm thinking for this client, I am going to blow dry out the curl because with curlier hair, wave and curly hair, you're able to get really good memory with your blow dries. But I'm going to be using our grooming tonic to get even more memory and style out of it because we want to be able to fight against that moisture and humidity and heat in the air that will bring the curl back. And now I'm just working back in the crown. Perfect. Now I'm going to be moving up to the front again, doing the same thing that I did on my dominant side, on my non-dominant side. So this, the finger angle, I'm going to be dropping as well. I'll make sure I have a nice clean section. Marry it to the baseline, over direct, drop our finger angle. All right, now I'm going to move to the top section, also using the hair that's already been cut. I want to make sure that the hair is longest in front to have a slight angle down to the back. But I also don't want to accentuate, because he doesn't have a very strong apex of his head, but there are clients that have stronger apexes, and you really want to make sure that you're flattening it out through that apex. So I'm going to go in and create my guide in the center based off of what kind of line, what kind of silhouette I want to create. So I hold up this hair, the very front piece. I hold up the crown. So I see that I want to take some off the crown. Also keeping in mind how much your client wants taken off. Some clients know, I want exactly an inch taken off, I want exactly 2 inches taken off. Other times they just default to your expertise. And this is sort of the way that you can determine what needs to be taken off rather than just going, well, I'm just going to take an inch off the top, or I'm going to take, you know, a couple centimeters off. So now that I've created that guide, I'm going to go back in and check it again. Nice. So we have that diagonal shape. And that will help support the length in front. So now I'm going to be taking horizontal sections, pulling it up. There's what I've cut to come down to my baseline. This is what I've cut to determine the silhouette of the top. And this is all I need to cut. So now I have 3 guides that I'm working off of. I have the guide in the center, the guide from the baseline, and also the guide of the section that I just cut. All right, and then going off that middle guide again, starting right at the apex. I'm going to do my non-dominant side. Just want to check. So I am leaving a good amount of length in the crown. I'm not rounding out the crown or taking weight out of it because we do want that weight back there. All right, so now I'm going to go in, I'm going to start my blow dry, which I am going to add a little bit of product to. I'm going to be adding the grooming tonic. Now I like to use this in the shop, and then I like to retail the spray grooming tonic, but they are 2 different products. The spray grooming tonic is about 30% lighter. It does have, like the grooming tonic, it does have argan oil and gives good memory, but it's lighter, so it's able to get through the spray nozzle. And clients can go a little heavier with it. So I'm just working this through all of his hair. Actually want just a little bit more. It's a lot of hair. I'm working it through, making sure it's evenly distributed. Then I'm going to get out my handy all haircuts Denman brush. I use this to style just about every cut I do. It gives great tension. It's gentle on the scalp. I'm able to bevel the hair if I want just by going in and pulling like that, or I can really smooth it. Gives good, it is one of the best all around brushes. So I really want to make sure I'm smoothing during the blow dry. So I like to have it at medium heat, low speed. Find if you have your blow dryer up to a really high speed, you're sort of moving the hair around too much. And really a blow dry is all about controlling the hair as you're drying it. So I'm working from the front corner, and I'm just working up to the top of the head, just sort of working to smooth out his curl and his wave. And also I'm working upward because I want to build that body and that shape through my baseline and accentuate that cut that I just did. Are there any products that anyone would like to see me use on this type of hair? Anything that people feel like hasn't been used in any of these lives before? Anything that somebody's curious about, just let me know. Because after I finish this blow dry, that's when I'm going to refine my bottom section. That would be the point that I trim him up, clean up around the ears. I'm actually going to leave a little bit of weight around his ears, taper up per his request, because it gives a little bit of that movement going up the head as well. I'm going to clean up his sideburn, taper it off a little bit, and also taper off his neckline.
Katie, we got some product suggestions.
Ooh, tell me.
People are asking for the Surf Tonic, and some other people are saying that hair would look greased up. So right now it looks pretty 50-50, whether we do something looser and more textured or classic and tighter with some shine.
I love the Surf Tonic for wavier textures because I find that the salt that's in it is so well balanced, because I feel like there's so many salt sprays on the market, and so many of them are either, I mean, they almost will make the hair look ashy. Some won't even feel like that there's any salt in it at all, and it's just a little bit of like a styling tonic. I really love our Surf Tonic and the balance that it gives and the texture that it gives to wavy hair. It creates those curls bouncing off each other. So I'm not going to use the Surf Tonic today. I did use the Surf Tonic in my previous live demo to accentuate the waves that my other client had. But yeah, I'm thinking, would you like something water soluble? You want to be able to wash this out? Okay. I'm going to go with something water soluble for him, but I'm going to cocktail it a little bit with the green grease. Because I find that the tea tree oil in the green grease, it helps break down the grease, like the actual beeswax grease lanolin base. And it makes it so it is easier to wash out than, say, like the paint. But yeah, I think I'm going to use something Stronghold and dilute it a little bit with the green grease. So I never want to put, bring this around. I never want to put dry hair over wet hair. And what I mean by that is I don't want to blow dry the front of his hair and then have to put dry hair over the wet back of his head. So I'm going to work from where it's now dry, from the back, working all the way up to the front. So I'm really trying to smooth that curl out. So I'm pulling it across the head. So I'm doing almost diagonal back sections. I'm just going piece by piece. And then once I get up to the front, that's when I'm going to be doing my beveling with the brush. So I can get that volume built in from the blow dry. So the way that you bevel with a Denman or any other sort of paddle brush that you'd be using is section that off, and you scoop. You brush down against the way you want to go, and you scoop and you pull back, and it's got great tension. You're already getting fantastic lift with that technique. And we have a lot of things working for us here. We have the blow dry technique, we have the way the hair was cut, we have the grooming tonic in there giving great memory and style, and also good, weighty, curly hair. It just is always takes the blow dry the best. I'm going to come around to the other side and I'm going to switch hands. I also want to check that it's all the way dry. And the way I like to do that is you can almost feel, if it's slightly damp, it's going to feel cool, sort of like a coldness to the hair. I'm not feeling any of that throughout the head, so that tells me we are done. We have the very nice smoothed out front. It's going to look awesome when we get some product up in there. So I am still going to be doing an all scissor cut, so I'm going to be tapering the neckline and the sideburns with my scissors. But you could do this with a clipper, especially because I'm using a clipper comb. Just repeating the same thing on this side. And then this is where I ask the client to put their chin down, because I find tilt your head forward gets confusing for people, because then they think forward to me and they start to tilt their head back. And so I always say just chin down. And I'm angling my comb outward so I can get the shortest length at the bottom, but then I'm maintaining more length as I'm going up into my middle section of the bottom of the head. Because I don't want to go and cut off with my scissor over comb or clipper over comb, depending on what technique you're using for this part. I don't want to cut off all the work that I've done. Right. I'm going to clean this up with a razor after I style them out. So the two that I'm going to cocktail today is Extreme Matte Pomade and our green grease. Kind of ends up giving it a little more of a natural shine while still being super, super strong. Because our green grease is a medium shine, and the Extreme Matte Hold Pomade is completely matte. So it just gives ever so slightly a natural shine. So I like to go in and go around the outside of the pomade tin, so I can always know how much I have in that's left in my tin. If you just start digging in to the center, you'll kind of lose how much you have. So I'm doing a knuckle of the green and 2 knuckles of the gray, the Extreme Hold Matte Pomade. And in my hand, sort of mixing those two together, and now all over. And I'm going to be working back to forward. Because when I'm working back to forward, I'm actually able to get the pomade into the base of his hair, and actually to the scalp. You really want to work it into that part of the hair, because you're not getting style through the ends of the hair as much as you're getting the direction of the foundation of the style through the base. That's where you get all the control, is at the root of the hair. But you do want even distribution from root to end. Kind of feeling for any dry spots. Tells me I need a little bit more. I'm going to go in, do 1 knuckle, do the same ratio, but just a little bit less. I'm going to do 1 knuckle of the Extreme Hold Matte Pomade, and then sort of a half knuckle of the green. And then as I get all this distributed through the hair, I'm going to go in and style with a comb, and then finish the style with a metal pick. This also helps distribute the product a little bit more. Now I want to get more lift out of that front without disrupting the shape that I've created too much. All right, and that's the Vanguard. Are there any last questions before we get wrapped up here?
I don't see any last questions, just lots of praise. Such a great head of hair. Cameraman was awesome.
Yeah, really great head of hair.
Everybody was excited to see the finished style and the finished look. But haircut looks amazing. Finish is great. And as always, your explanations and your teaching was phenomenal there, Katy.
Thank you so much.
Any last words for the viewers?
Nothing. Just thanks for tuning in, or thanks for checking it out in the replay, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. And
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in to Reuzel Live this week. Coming out with us next week, April the 18th, with Scumbassador Patrick Lewis, all the way from Chicago, Illinois, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.